Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Long Walk Talks Lost. This is your pilot speaking. My name is David Hensley. I'm the owner and creative director of Long Walk Productions, and I am joined tonight by my two co-pilots,
Cara Hayes
and Robert Bradford.
And we are continuing our Lost 20-year retrospective with the two-part season finale. I was going to say wrapping up, but we got one more episode to do that next week when we discuss the TV series as a whole. But tonight, it's a countdown to see which one of us is going to cry first and how long it's going to take. I think I know who. But before we dive into that, I was looking at Cara. This is an audio medium. Sorry, listeners. Before we dive into that, let's talk about our themed meal. Robert the cook, kick it off for us, please.
Yeah, so just as a sort of celebration of the end of this stage of our podcast journey together, we decided we were going to do a whole thing. So we had a dinner with ribeye steak as the entree, scalloped potatoes, peas, rolls, and David brought ice cream for us to all turn to once our feelings became too overwhelming to deal with any other way but eating. And we each did an individual drink from the run of the show. So, Cara, you got the Little Prince cocktail that I think we did for one of Kate's episodes in season 5, and David and I both just had scotch.
Yeah.
And I actually thought about this on the way home. With the ice cream, that harkened back to the themed meal of eating your feelings.
Mm-hmm.
So
it did.
I love that, bringing it all together.
Well, there were a lot of feelings to eat. Are you guys ready to discuss the two-part series finale?
Yes.
As ready as I'm going to be.
All right. We're going to start, it's pretty much just one really long episode. There wasn't really a break when we watched it. So it's episode 617/18, The End, parts 1 and 2. Robert, take it.
So we open with the box containing the coffin of Christian Shepherd being unloaded from an oceanic flight, and just sort of a bookend for this season. So we start literally with a dead person getting off a plane, which, similarly enough, the season began with 8:15 landing in LAX, seemingly as if it had never crashed. And we'll get into, who was dead when and what it all means, but yeah, that the season, suffice it to say, began with dead people disembarking, and that's how it ends, or how it starts its final episode as well. Also, I made the note here generally, I think, because we do see, it's a silent montage of just, the cargo doors opening, it being unloaded by baggage handling and put into a van and driven. And just all through this episode, a reminder that the editors and Michael Giacchino as the composer, the orchestra that did the score, some of the best we ever had on network television. Just the way that they, just tell the story silently and just like play at the feelings that are going to come out. We see quite a few montages across this episode, and all of them are just exquisite. My other note, John Piper Ferguson is the actor who plays just the oceanic delivery man. He gets, I think, one line where he asks Desmond when he delivers the coffin to the church where it should go, and Desmond tells him to just put it in the back. And I just freaked out because he's one of those guys where you've seen him in so many genre things. He was based in Vancouver for a while, so like any sci-fi show that filmed up there. So he was on The X-Files, he was on Smallville, he was on Battlestar Galactica, he was on The Adventures of Briscoe County Jr., if you ever saw that great old Western with Bruce Campbell. Mm-hmm. He was in the final season of Burn Notice, just really fun actor you've just probably seen in like a dozen supporting roles across different shows. I thought he was going to do more, but no, apparently he just showed up and that was sort of it for him.
I don't know. Dropping off Christian's body is kind of important. Yeah, sitting outside the church are Desmond, alternate /sideways Desmond, and flash sideways Kate, and unrelated to the actual note itself, but I feel like Henry Ian Cusick and Evangeline Lilly had more chemistry in this like 90-second interaction than she ever had with Matthew Fox or Josh Holloway. Did you, the two of you, feel the same way? Like Kate and Desmond were just going to go fuck in that back seat after the scene ended?
I mean, now that you mention it, like, I don't think I would have noticed it, just because I think every time Kate comes on the screen, it's just like, ugh. But yeah, I mean, you're absolutely right thinking back on it.
Yeah.
I think a little bit of it is that Sideways Kate gets to be just kind of a more fun personality in general without the,
Angst.
Yeah, the angst and the sad equals horny equals sadder that you described for her, David. So she just seems like she's kind of like along for the ride, not sure what. And so, yeah, she has just already a more relaxed camaraderie with Desmond than she ever did in all of her emotional scenes with Jack or Sawyer.
I say all that, but the actual note that I took was during their conversation, Desmond tells her that the coffin contains the body of a man named Christian Shepherd. And finally, after 6 seasons, Flash Sideways Kate gets to call out how ridiculous it is that there's a man named Christian Shepherd. But back on the island, we get it's not really a nickname watch, I guess. Sawyer, when talking about going to rescue Desmond, refers to him as the leprechaun. And I was like, did Sawyer just confuse Scotland for Ireland?
Seems weird. Like, he could have said, like, I'll get the Highlander, or I'll get the... Like, I'm sure there was something he could have come up with that was, like, Scotland coded. On the other hand, he's in a huge hurry. Back in the Flash Sideways, so Hurley and Saeed go to what turns out to be the hotel where Charlie is staying, and Hurley just picks up a tranquilizer dart gun and goes up to recruit Charlie. Saeed, who, remember, just got busted out of a police van after committing a triple homicide, is asking, like, what if I just decide to leave? And foreshadowing for the end of the episode, Hurley doesn't try to, beg or bargain with him. He just says, well, you have a choice. You can leave if you want to, but you'll really be glad if you stay. So just a very Jacob-like way of assuring Saeed that he has a choice, but hinting that there's a choice he should make in this situation, which will, short-term payoff or short-term tease for the payoff that comes at the end of the series. So he goes up with the tranquilizer dart gun and opens the door, and Charlie is there, who has no idea who this random guy is that just showed up at his door. But Hurley just gets this immediate giant grin because he has been fully awakened, and that's his one-time best friend who he has not seen in a very, very long time. And even as he tries to talk Charlie in, and Charlie basically tells him to get lost, no pun intended, you can just tell Hurley is so happy to see him again, before eventually apologizing and shooting him in the back with a dart so he can just get him into the back of the car.
And his aim is impeccable because it looks like that dot goes right into Charlie's spine.
Yes, it's a wonder he wasn't paralyzed, like, beyond the catatonic state.
If I remember right, Dominic Monaghan had a guest appearance on the NBC show Chuck around this time, where he also played like a rock star. He'd gotten like secret information coded in a tattoo or something, so the main characters needed to like drug
Cut
him
his skin off.
Well, it probably would have gotten to that point eventually, but they need to like drug him and find some way to like figure out how he got this info. But because he's like a hardened rock star, he's got such a high tolerance that they keep like shooting him with tranq guns, and he's just like shrugging them off and still moving. And I just think it would have been hilarious if Hurley had to shoot Charlie like 4 times before he actually went down.
Well, the Sawyer nickname train keeps on chugging because I think for the one and only time in the show, he calls Fake Lock, Smokey, which we all do because that became like a fan nickname. But had it ever been mentioned before? Had anyone ever referred to him as Smokey prior to that?
Not in that exact phrasing, I don't think.
Well, that Sawyer is a trendsetter because Smokey would endure for a very long time. But then he also calls Miles Enos, which is a callback to when Miles was his quote-unquote deputy in the 70s portion of season 5.
Yeah, so he goes to the well where Desmond was last seen, tries to spy on Flock, and then Ben gets the drop on him, which when he stands up and we see in the wide shot, he's hiding behind a very small bush that like clearly Josh Holloway would not have been concealed by. But it turns out he doesn't care so much because he elbows Ben in the face, gets the rifle, and makes his escape. Just so Ben gets one last blow to the face, just, for the road before the show wraps up.
Hey, had to keep the makeup department busy. I think we joked about it before. He probably had a book club going with the makeup department for all the cuts and bruises that they had to put on his face over the years.
We didn't really talk about it, but he does note that, the Man in Black both A, said he could be in charge of the island when Man in Black escaped, and B, that Man in Black was going to destroy the island and sink it to the bottom of the sea. And Flock just basically responds with, "Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't mention that. Well, you can leave with me if you want, whatever."
Womp. Desmond is not in the well, however, because Desmond is back at Rose and Bernard's little homestead camp, which it's great to see them again. But Rose has always low-key been the smartest character on this show. And when Desmond wakes up, she very reasonably tells him that after breakfast, he needs to go because her and Bernard are over everybody's drama. Which, I mean, she's absolutely right, because in less than 2 minutes, the drama finds its way to their camp.
And we get a Scary O'Quinn line reading as Locke just casually walks towards Rose, but draws his knife and says, "Hello, Rose," in a way that I can't do justice to, but is again him tapping that stepfather well of, oh my gosh, if he starts using that knife, it's going to get horrifying.
Yeah, thankfully I remembered that Rose and Bernard turned out okay, but I imagine watching this the first time, it's like, if this man really kills the two most beloved characters left on the show, it's going to be devastating.
There would have been a revolt.
There would have been. Shortly after that, you find out that Ben has only been faking being on Flock's side, and it was really nice for a change of pace, because one more Ben's gone bad again at this close to the end of the show, it would have been boring. Would have been insulting a little bit. I like that he's putting on an act because, Ben going bad is so predictable. The Flock would go along with it.
Also fun that, him just pretending to be on Flock's side did not prevent him from getting his revenge on Charles Widmore.
Well,
but that was just its own separate thing.
2 birds, 1 stone.
Although I guess thinking about it, if he'd killed Widmore before Widmore had told Flock what he wanted to know, it actually could have really put a crimp in his plan. So he phrases it as revenge, but it's also him trying to keep Flock from getting crucial information. We finally see Sideways Juliet because she shows up to the hospital where Sun is still being treated after getting shot in the stomach. And we just get the note that her last name is Carlson, which I don't remember if that ever came up in her flashbacks previously. She always used her husband's last name of Burke. And yeah. In this flash sideways, she's using what I guess is presumably her maiden name, because we find out that she's divorced eventually, but she's clearly not using her ex-husband's name here.
And holy crap. What happens next just sort of kicks off the mood for the rest of the finale. Juliet performs an ultrasound on Sun, and Jin finally, after all this time, gets to see his daughter, and he and Sun finally get a happy ending after the universe has conspired to keep them apart for so long. Here, it's our first indicator of what's going on with the Flash Sideways, because things actually are okay for the two of them, and it is so beautiful to watch. Which brings us to
first cry of the episode, of just the looks on their faces as they not just get to see their daughter, but also remember everything they shared on the island up to the last moment they had together. And in just the way that the language barrier has always stood for sort of what separated them from each other and from the people around them, they both go back to speaking fluent English as soon as they can remember it, to the surprise of Juliet. Oh man, it is very far from the last time that we will all start crying during this episode.
And I think we got Cara already. Yeah. All right.
Damn it. I tried so hard.
14 minutes, about 14 and a half minutes, and Cara's crying. It's okay. I don't think that the two of us are going to be very far behind you. I love the way this revelation between the two of them is shot, because one of the brilliant things about the finale is you sort of kind of get to have a clip show of all the greatest moments of the entire series without stooping so low as to do a clip show right at the end. If you ever watched a 90s sitcom or even early aughts sitcom, you remember that at least once a season they had to pad out an episode with a bunch of characters sitting around going, hey, do you guys remember the time that we did this? And then you get just a long clip of that happening. It's brilliant the way they use it here because, yeah, you see so many beautiful moments from the show's run this way.
You do, well, and because it's not clips, it's flashes, and it makes you remember. Sort of like they're remembering. Like, oh, I forgot about that, or it's oh god.
Well, everything about this, if this had been like the end of a one-season show, would have felt really like saccharine and manipulative. But because it's a show that's always been built around, memories, like flashbacks are the structure of the show for the first 3 seasons, and then for a big chunk going onwards, and how that informs who you are now, the choices you're making, and that instead of this being a case where characters flash back to traumas or betrayals or regrets, they get to flash back to their joy, the things that they shared, and their reaction is just one of like happiness that they found each other, and then ultimately peace. And yeah, the show earns it.
It really does. But on a completely different note, I don't remember the exact line that inspired the following quote, but Jack, at this point in the episode, has fully embraced his role as the new Jacob because people keep asking him questions and he keeps making vague, ominous statements, which led Cara to say, instead of Captain Obvious, we have Dr. Ambiguous.
At least I found some humor somewhere.
Oh, we all needed it.
No,
Yeah.
God knows.
Oh my gosh. We do. I think this is the point where the show in the Flash Sideways has gone full on into the timeline, just stretching and squeezing it however it needs. Because in the time that it took Desmond to bust Saeed, Kate, and himself out of the prison van, and then for him and Kate to get to the church and then move on to the gala, Locke has agreed to do the surgery, and Jack has gotten him in the hospital and prepped for surgery. So we are full on in like events happen at the speed they need to.
Oh, I mean, because insurance would never let that happen.
No, and I called it out several episodes ago, and I knew at the time why, but I thought it was worth bringing up because the reveal hadn't happened yet. Knowing what we know now about the structure of the Flash Sideways and what the purpose was, things could happen at the speed that they needed to as long as it helped the characters involved. So that's why it's funny that like a week passes between Jack getting off the plane and all this stuff about like, oh yeah, a week ago, blah blah blah, when it was only in Showtime like several hours ago. It feels like, now knowing that this is just kind of death's waiting room for them, they're getting there at the speed of plot.
And so we see Locke waiting to go into surgery, and Jack makes some conversation with him as he gets ready. And as he leaves, Locke asks about his father's body, because that's where they first met in the Flash Sideways, was in the reception or the office of Oceanic 815, filing the claim for their lost stuff. And when Jack says, yeah, we actually did find him, and he's should be back in LA now, I think Locke says something to the effect of, well, that's good. I hope you can find some peace. And Sideways Jack says, well, if I can fix you, Mr. Locke, that's all the peace I'll need. Which, foreshadowing. We got back on the island, Ben and... no, it's not Ben and... no, it's Miles and Richard, right? Because Miles finds Richard from where he got yeeted by the smoke monster. And Richard, despite being a little banged up, is otherwise okay. Although, I didn't really make a note on this, he does have his first gray hair, which in a sweet little moment, he looks kind of happy to finally be aging, but also realizes that he's not ready to die just yet. And so they're taking the boat, and they're going across to to finish the plan of blowing up the Ajira flight. Only they happen to pass through where the submarine debris is, and who should still be alive clinging to the wreckage but Frank Lapidus.
Frank motherfucking Lapidus.
And I'm just going to run through at the list of vehicles that have tried and failed to kill Frank Lapidus. You have a helicopter that got struck by lightning as he was flying onto the island. You have that same helicopter flown back to a freighter. The freighter exploded. Lapidus got off and on the helicopter, which ran out of fuel and crashed into the ocean. He got back into commercial flying, and then his plane got teleported with the loss of all power over to the island. He still landed it, and then got on a submarine, and the submarine had a bomb go off. And all of this cannot destroy Frank Lapidus. He is just too cool of a character for any vehicle to kill him.
Impenetrable aura. That's what it is. That is what Frank goddamn Lapidus exudes.
And it's so great that they found him, because when they explained their plan to blow up the plane, Frank just kind of casually is like, oh, why don't I just fix the plane and we fly away? And because it's Frank Lapidus, nobody finds that implausible.
I wouldn't argue.
So we eventually get to the showdown between Flock's group, because he convinces Desmond to come with him by threatening to kill Rose and Bernard if he doesn't. And so Ben and Desmond, Flock, Ben, and Desmond, meet up with Jack Hurley and Kate. That most of the other people don't actually matter that much. Just that Kate immediately unslings her rifle and starts trying to shoot the man in black. And in a hilarious note, Desmond and Ben both hit the deck immediately, as you do when a gun goes off. Normally characters on TV are very nonchalant about that, but it's fun to see them actually react like they could get hit by a stray.
Especially because it didn't really appear that Kate was aiming that stupid fucking rifle. She was just sort of pointing it in their general direction.
Well, I will say, eventually Lily does keep selling the fact that Kate was shot in the shoulder not too long ago. So her left arm is not in full commission, so she's kind of holding the rifle at her hip level. So Jack and Flock finally have a stare down. Flock kind of needles him a little bit by saying, like, I didn't think Jake would make the obvious choice. I expected to be a little more surprised. And for the first time in the history of Lost, a character just absolutely no-sells attempted manipulation. Jack just shrugs it off and tells Flock, we're going to go to this place together. You think you're going to win and you think you're going to destroy the island, but actually I'm going to kill you. And Flock is actually just caught off guard. He's like, well, how do you think that's going to happen? And Jack just goes, oh, that's the surprise. And it is a great, great moment to finally see Jack standing tall and just, this unstoppable smoke monster who's been the author of so much pain and suffering, completely flat-footed by it all.
And it's a great performance from Terry O'Quinn, who is like taken aback by Jack's confidence. And it's around this time that, for a show that loves irony, this next line really stands out. I do not remember now what exactly Jack says to Sawyer to inspire this line, but Sawyer, the master con artist, says to him, "That's a hell of a long con, Doc." And because this one in particular, Jake has been putting into motion for a long time, and it actually works.
So they eventually get to the heart of the island where Desmond is going to be lowered down to do his thing. And while Jack is helping him get tied off with a rope, Desmond hints at, like, for the first time, somebody in the present time of the island talks about the flash sideways as a thing that's also occurring. And Desmond says, there might be a way I can take you there. Maybe you don't have to do any of this. Hinting that he knows, like, what's about to happen to Jack over the rest of the episode. But Jack shuts it down and gives the first of several lines, which I think are the writers trying to underline a particular point that is going to get missed by a lot of fans in the time after this episode airs. There are no shortcuts, he says. All of this matters. Just saying that, like, it's not about skipping to the end. And that the actions and choices they're making right now are real and significant. So, yeah, just gonna note that one, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later.
Well, in the continuing adventures of the Flash Sideway characters, Hurley takes Saeed to a bar so that he can witness something. What is it? Boone being thrown out of said bar by a dude, and when Shannon comes out to try to break up the fight, the dude throws Shannon against a wall and then down into the trash. So Saeed jumps out of Hurley's Hummer, runs over there, and literally rescues Shannon from the trash.
This has to be one of the funniest notes I've seen.
As soon as this happened, I went straight to the notes and wrote down, Saeed rescues Shannon from the trash.
Should have left her there.
Aww.
I know.
This is one of the things that was pretty controversial about the finale, that Saeed sees Shannon, and that's what triggers his memories of the island, and the two of them kiss. And a lot of people were like, what about Saeed's wife? What about the woman he, looked for across multiple continents, died in his arms?
Fuck Nadia, I guess.
She wasn't on the island.
Yeah, so, and I think that's really the main part of it, is that, this is building towards a situation that's like, oh, all the important relationships that formed on the island.
And she was already dead before the island, right?
No, she died after. She died during the Oceanic 6 phase. So she actually outlived Shannon.
Oh.
Yeah. She
But
dies
she wasn't on the
sometime.
island.
She dies sometime between January and October of 2005.
Got it.
So the argument I'll make in favor of Shannon as kind of Saeed's sideways soulmate is that Nadia was like, as much as Saeed loved her, she was very much tied up in the part of his life that he tried to escape from. That he killed a man to help her escape from prison, and then when she died, he killed a bunch of men in revenge for her. And that makes Shannon kind of the only woman in Saeed's life that he ever could just love because they had a chance to be together and to meet. That, like, she represents sort of this true new start for him in a way that Nadia didn't. And so that's why they have that connection. I don't know if I even buy it myself totally as I'm saying it, but that's sort of me giving the episode kind of the best case for it.
You know, something is occurring to me just now. Boone comes up to Hurley's car while Shannon and Saeed are making out outside of a bar right next to the trash. Boone comes up, and him and Hurley are talking about how difficult it was to get Shannon back from Australia for this moment to happen. And the implication is that Boone had the same revelation as everyone else, just off screen and unprompted, which made me think about, how did all these other male characters, most of them, have their revelations? It's because of the love of a woman. Charlie has his because of Claire. Daniel has his because of his love of Charlotte. Did Boone go to Australia, bone his sister, and wake up and realize that he wasn't living in the real world?
That's why we're not allowed to talk about that. You know what? That hit the cutting room floor.
Well, it can also be like you can be triggered by like similar circumstances to things that happened to you on the island. Like Desmond has his first flash when he sees like Charlie trapped in the sinking car. So it could be that off-screen Desmond just went up to Boone and like shoved him off like a 4-story building or something.
I mean, he is a fan of those extreme measures. You go back a few episodes and watch him running over Locke with his car again.
Which they included in the previously on recap, I think, just because they wanted to.
I mean, I would. Yeah, no, I want to know how Boone got his revelation.
I don't think you do.
Anyway, they do the whole... guys, help me out here. I took this note, and now I don't remember what...
So it's when Lapidus and...
They
get to the island. They get to the Hydra Island, and Claire comes out of the jungle with a rifle.
Yeah, and Claire is threatening them, similar to how Rousseau would always do. They're in communication with Jack and Co. back on the main island, and then we hear a gunshot, and we think that maybe one of the Hydra Island people, either Miles or Richard or Lapidus, has gotten shot. But no, it's the second time they pulled a fake gunshot over a walkie-talkie trick. The last time being at the end of season 3, when Mr. Friendly fired his gun into the ground instead of into the heads of Saeed, Jen, and Bernard. Just revisiting old trends.
Yeah, it's the finale, so they're doing those little callbacks. So yeah, back at I think the heart of the island is what people have come to call the Glowy Cave, but they're lowering Desmond down. Jack and Locke are lowering Desmond down, and Flock decides to kind of... it's honestly unclear if he's doing this to taunt Jack or if it actually... Because he seems almost like he's trying to be friendly for a moment, but he talks about like, you, me, Desmond down in a hole in the ground. It's just like old times. If there was a button down there, we could argue over whether or not to push it. And Jack turns around and shuts him down with just an awesome speech where he goes, "You're not John Locke. You disrespect his memory by wearing his face, but you're nothing like him. Turns out he was right about most everything, and I just wish I could have told him that while he was still alive." And again, so awesome to just see characters completely shrugging off like the attempts to like deceive and lie and manipulate. And as I've said, it's so much across this season, Jack standing up for the deceased John Locke, even as like the final boss telling Jack that like, oh, your faith is misplaced, you're a sucker for believing in this, it's a stupid waste of your time and your life. The final boss of that is wearing John Locke's face, and he's still like standing up for the real guy. One of my favorite moments of the final season right there. They also give us another callback where after Desmond gets down to the bottom, Jack and Locke both look over the edge, and we get that same descending camera shot that ended season 1 with their faces looking down into the camera as it pulls further back, down and down, and it's a really, really fun visual callback. In the flash sideways, they get to the concert at the museum where Daniel and Driveshaft are performing, and let's see, so Jack's table has Claire, David, and Juliet, and also it's hilarious to see Elizabeth Mitchell, Dylan Minnette, I think is the actor who plays David, and Emily DeRavin all standing in a line, and just seeing how tiny Claire is in that, like the 15-year-old boy, or however old the actor is like a head taller than her already.
Yeah, I think we looked it up in one episode, and she's 5'2".
Yeah. But they do, they're seated at table number 23, which is Jack's candidate number, and a fun little touch.
You know, speaking of this gala concert, what little we see of it, Daniel's classical piano playing combined with Driveshaft makes for a really awkward concert. I know that this is a Flash Sideways alternate universe where things like this are designed to happen for a specific reason, but I would not have wanted to be in attendance, or else at least I'd hope they have an open bar. Anyway, during the concert, Claire, naturally, goes into labor and stumbles off, and Kate follows her and helps her give birth. And I just joked about it a few minutes ago, how all these revelations happen because of a loved one and all these men and their love for women. I think it is a really nice touch that after 6 seasons of being defined by which boy she wants to kiss more and her relationships with men, Kate's revelation, her wake up, comes from helping Claire deliver Aaron.
So, from a woman.
Well, yeah. Damn, that's a good point. Yeah, women be waking up people.
I mean, you know.
Just, this time in a non-romantic fashion.
Yeah, I did. I loved that as well. I thought it was, to me, it was the only way for Kate to remember.
Yeah. And are we ready for the second cry of the episode? Because Charlie comes up and tries to help, and Kate tells him to go get blankets and water. And when he returns with the blankets, he and Claire, who also had a revelation at the same time as Kate did, Claire sees Charlie, and that kicks off his wave of memories of him and Claire's time together. And if you weren't crying already, you are now. Because getting to see these two reunited is so moving and so heart-wrenching. And just so good to see the two of them finally together that I think it was after this we had to pause and go get ice cream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that was the scene that made us all go, nope.
Need
snacks.
Some, need some feeling
comfort
snacks.
food. Yeah, it was around. I welled up a little bit with Jen and Son. This is where I started crying, and then we ate some ice cream, and I was okay. And then the next one, like the next cry alert, really just set me off for the rest of the fucking episode. Fuck you, feelings.
Seriously.
So I think we teased the foreshadowing way back in season 4 where Ben has like or season 5, whenever it is, he's got like a pool of water in like a tunnel connected to his secret room, and he pulls out a plug in the pool of water and it drains, and we joked about him flushing the island. Well, there actually is a pool of like glowing golden water in the island with a plug in the middle of it. Desmond pulls it out and everything goes red. So he literally is uncorking the island. And I think they managed to pull it off. Like it's a very hard thing to describe without sounding silly. I think in the moment, just like the lighting, the music, the fact that everything starts quaking immediately sort of sells it, but it is a little goofy. Back up top, you start. What's up, Cara?
That just so that just kind of hit me. You said, uncorking the island. Is that why Jacob called it, like said the island is like a cork?
Oh, yeah, he alluded to that. What was it? The end of season 5?
I think it's when he's talking to Richard.
Yeah. Early this season when he's talking to Richard, because that episode ends with the Man in Black taking the bottle and smashing it open.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
my thinking is that like whatever there's this source of like light and water and like these kind of building blocks of life at the island, and there's also something very dark in there that comes out when a person goes in. That's what the Man in Black carries with him. So I think there's a reason that it said that Jacob had Desmond as kind of a failsafe, that like if Desmond could destroy the island while the Man in Black was still on it, then he would, like, it sounds like that would be bad, but like the thing that shouldn't escape won't. So it's like the Man in Black is literally carrying the essence of whatever this evil thing is, and if he can get off the island after removing this kind of central heart of it, then that puts something really terrible out in the world.
So destroying the island is less worse than letting the Smokey off the island.
Yeah, I think it's similar. It's kind of what they set up with like the failsafe of the hatch in season 2, that like the best thing to do is just vent the electromagnetic energy, but if you have to, Desmond can turn a key and just blow the whole system, and that's still better than like letting it build up and go on its own.
Yeah, if the light at the heart of the island goes out, that is a bad thing. Yes, Jacob flat out says it. Yeah, a man who can turn into smoke landing in mainland America, who is bulletproof and has like centuries worth of knowledge, is probably worse.
It's also possible that like there's some effect he's carrying with him that like isn't really seen because we never see him step foot off the island. But yeah, we do find out that after the island is uncorked or whatever, Flock has kind of a taunting moment where he's like, aha, Jack, you thought that my plan wouldn't work. And so he goes to leave. Jack tackles him from behind and starts punching him. And then they both realize that Flock can bleed now. And Terry O'Quinn gets to do another oh crap moment of realization. Although he does eventually like hit Jack with a rock and make his getaway. Where the others are all waiting, a tree falls towards Hurley, and Ben, in I guess the first purely selfless thing he's done in the whole season, pushes Hurley out of the way and gets hit by the tree himself. And also in a moment that didn't really connect with me before, but everybody immediately goes to try to help get Ben free, including Sawyer, who I don't think has seen Ben since everything was going down with the freighter in season 4. Like, Ben's had this whole journey of, redemption and moral awakening. But for Sawyer, he's still like that guy who's killed a bunch of people, who oversaw Walt's kidnapping, and we'd be crazy to ever trust. So the fact that Sawyer is still like recognizes this guy's it's all of us against that guy now. Yeah, it's still a good moment for him. And that's what they're all doing when Flock makes it to the cliff where he can look out and see Libby's boat. And despite earlier saying, "You're not John Locke," Jack has to shout something dramatic to get him to turn around. So he does yell, "Locke!" And they turn, and we get the just, again, would be cheesy if like the music and editing weren't perfect, of the two of them sprinting towards each other, like Jack charging down the rocks. Flock draws his knife and goes running up to meet him.
I'm pretty sure that Jack like went to Superman punch him.
That's where we cut to commercials. Jack literally like leaping into the air with like he's gonna do what's the AJ Styles, the phenomenal forearm that he's just gonna.
That was my next note, Cara. I think it was kind of a cop out that Jack leaps with his fist cocked back to do this Superman punch, and then it cuts to, I presume, commercial, and when it comes back, they're just leaping towards each other like normal. No Superman punch happens. And I was like, oh, come on. We couldn't have had that. Anyway, Robert, continuing with your note.
It is just such... I love this fight so much because the choreography is not anything flashy. It really is just the two of them like trading punches, kicking each other, wrestling around, but I'm pretty sure it's a set they're on, and they've got like green screen for the water, because I can't imagine you would safely film anything like this if that's anything like a real location.
Yeah, I mean, Cara brought it up earlier. No insurance company would go for that.
But it looks, because the rain is pouring, like the camera keeps swooping around them. You see the ocean behind them. It's just, it has a climactic good versus evil feel. Apparently, the original plan for this was when the island started to come apart, there would actually be like a volcano erupting in the background, and that would be just something that like was in the distance for all of these sequences. Got shut down for budgetary reasons.
Thank God.
Yeah, honestly, feel like they don't need it. Like they're fine with what they've got.
I think I would have hated it. I would not have liked it if there had been a volcano erupting. I think that would be too much.
Yeah.
Well, during the fight, in kind of a biblically on-the-nose kind of move, Jack gets pierced in the side. You know, the savior of the island gets pierced in the side with Locke's knife, and Locke gets the upper hand and is about to cut Jack's throat. In fact, he does get the knife down there and nicks his throat when, bam, gunshot. Kate gets to start to finish off the Man in Black with a one-liner, "I saved a bullet for you, John." And kind of the only cool thing that Kate's done in, 6 seasons. But again, it's a little bit on the nose. So Jack gets to cap off the fight by standing upright and kicking Locke over the side of the cliff in the same manner that Flock kicked Jacob into the fire at the end of season 5. It's shot and choreographed, blocked very similarly. Flock goes over the side, and we actually do get to see like his body down there on some rocks.
Sad note that he literally gets kicked off a cliff over the ocean, and like his lifelong dream is to just get off the island. He doesn't even get to do that in death. He lands on a lower ledge and still is just lying there a couple of feet from the water.
I love that.
Right. But like I said, it's a little bit on the nose, but as soon as he is dead, the storm passes. The storm that's been hanging over the episode up until now. It kicks off when the two of them start their fist fight. It's commented on by several characters in the build-up to this. I think Miles and Flock both say there's a storm coming. But yeah, Flock is dead.
And so back in the Flash Sideways, we see Locke is recovering from his surgery. Again, time happens however it needs to. And, Jack starts to do like the check-in on him and is like, it could be a couple of weeks before we know, only for Locke to tell him that he can feel his legs again. And they kind of recreate the shot from Walkabout where Locke looks down and sees like his toes moving for the first time, except this time it's with Jack in the frame looking down as well. And as, he like does some quick tests and confirms that Locke can feel like the motion and feel sensation down there. That's when Locke's memories start to come back. And we get like a montage of just him, on the island. And this is one moment where I was just like, somehow Locke's reaction to his island memories is a huge smile. Like, I get what we're going for here, but wouldn't he be like, wow, 75% of that was so depressing. I failed a lot. Just everything up to like his death was like, because John Locke had just the saddest story on the island. So it's kind of funny that he, again, I get what they're going for, but he has the moment and just gets this happy smile to remember his time there.
Yeah, counterpoint, the other 25% that wasn't horribly depressing for him was really good because third cry of the episode alert, this one got me going. His montage of memories, yeah, that got some feelings moving.
Terry O'Quinn does have a way of like smiling that like where his eyes squeeze almost shut just as like as his grin takes over his face. That's really beautiful. And the fact that Flock never smiled like that, you just suddenly realize, oh, we get to see this like expression of joy again is, yeah, really lovely. And I just noted here, so that makes Locke, Kate, Claire, Jen, Sun, and possibly Jack the only ones who were triggered not by something other than a romantic relationship for their island memories. Because Jack does also apparently have like a moment of realization, but unlike Locke, he pushes it back and just is like, I've got to go, I've got to meet up with my son. Heartbreaking line a little bit is when Locke tells him, Jack, you don't have a son. And Jack doesn't really know what to say to that and just goes. And Locke finally says, I hope someone does for you what you did to me. There are so many lines in here I could just put in our tearjerker list because, oh my gosh. But yeah. Back on the island, so Jack knows that he's in really bad shape, but he's got to go and set right what Desmond did, because just killing Flock wasn't enough to keep the island from collapsing. So he and Sawyer have like one last handshake, and Sawyer thanks him for everything. And I just noted that so Kate and Sawyer go diving off the cliff to get to the boat so they can make it to Hydra Island. And I was just like, it's fitting that the two career criminals that were on Flight 815 leave the main island by the Butch and Sundance method. Just the crazy clifftop dive. We also get a goodbye between Jack and Kate. And anybody who's listened to this podcast or even listened to this episode knows how all of us feel about Kate. But I do think they kind of stick the landing with her and Jack's romance. I think both actors play it really well. The moment where Jack tells her, like, I've got to go and do this. And she's like, well, tell me that I'll see you again. And he can't do it. So all they do is just say, I love yous. And she kisses him and they have to be parted. I wish this was a romance that across the whole run of the show I'd been more invested in. But I do think it's a really beautiful moment that really just sells the weight of what it is for both of these two people. So, and Hurley also, so Ben and Hurley both stay with Jack. Ben, because he says if the island's going down, then he's going to go down with it. And Hurley, his initial reason is he's not going to try to make the jump or climb down the ladders to get to the boat, but also he just doesn't want to abandon Jack. The two of them make it back to the glowy cave. Jack clearly knows he's dying and is unlikely to survive what he's about to do, so he tells Hurley that he's got to take on the role of protector. And Hurley doesn't want to, but initially he's like, I'll do this, but when you come back up, I'm giving it back to you. And Jack has to rush the ceremony. I just love that across this season, we've seen the transfer ceremony where, you share a drink with the person and you pass on the ability 3 times now. And when the woman passed it on to Jacob, it was like this sacred chalice thing. When Jacob passed it on to Jack, it was just with a hiking cup that Jack happened to have in his pack. And now it's literally just a plastic oceanic water bottle that happens to be lying on the ground near them. Just, I love the progress of that and how appropriate that is for just Jack and Hurley.
And in this scene as a whole, we've spent a lot of time on this podcast praising Jorge Garcia, almost as much as we've spent shitting on Kate. But he gets one last chance to really show off his acting chops here, because his breakdown in this scene is, I feel like
20th cry of the night.
I feel like I'm just abusing the phrase heart-wrenching now, but watching him break down and cry while talking to Jack, oh God, it killed me.
This whole...
And so Jack makes it down to where Desmond is and revives him, drags him over to the rope, and ties it around him. Desmond tries to argue that he should be the one to fix the heart of the island, but Jack tells him he's done enough and he should just go back to his wife and his son. And they part with one final, I'll see you in another life, brother, and it's more literal than ever this time. So Jack, drags the stone thing back into the center of the pool, and for a minute it doesn't look like it's worked, but then the water starts to fill back in. And in a shot that I just really love, you see Jack smile and then just start to get this almost insane laugh on his face as he realizes it's worked. And the light fills up again, and it's so bright. And we, because this is lost, and it always will be, we cut from that moment of Jack wounded in the side, lying in the pool of light that he has restored, to a statue of Jesus outside the church where Jack and Kate have just driven up. And we've skipped over a lot of the mechanics of the flash sideways, but yeah, Jack gets there, everybody's gone, and Kate takes him over to the church.
Yeah, we're a little ways past it, but I mean, after the surgery, Jack does get to the gala after the concert is already over, and he sees Kate, and she tells him that everyone's already gone, and he has a second attempt, the revelation is trying to happen, and he keeps refusing it. But when he sees Kate and she recognizes him, she says, "I've missed you." God damn it, I'm going to start crying, and I hate it. I'd love to be the one to take credit for this, but I rewatched the ending of this several times in preparation to make sure that I probably wouldn't cry when we watched it, and we see how well that worked out. But somebody on YouTube pointed out that Kate's line, "I've missed you," hits a whole lot harder in retrospect with what, and I'll come back to it again later, but with what Christian says to him about some people died before you, some long after you. We don't know how much time passed between Jack and Kate's goodbye and when she died. So that "I've missed you," that could have been weeks, months, it could have been literal decades. I love that.
Yeah.
Somebody else talk, God damn it.
I love how, I mean, all the actors are in top form this episode, but Matthew Fox, just the contrast between like the determined, heroic Jack on the island and the Jack who just seems increasingly confused and unsure, like just aware that something's happening in the flash sideways, but not quite sure what it all means, but just following these signs that keep pointing him towards this church. It's just, it makes the moment where he gets to the back room where the coffin is, and he circles around it, and okay, yeah, I think we're all going to be so.
Yeah. Can we just not? Can we just not?
Again, for we talked about I talked about how much of this episode's power comes from like the music and the editing and just all the craft of it. But this is just like a single shot. There's no dialogue. There's no music of Jack just circling the coffin, running his hand over it, and starting to piece together what it all means. And finally, he sets himself up in front of it, and just like he did all the way back in White Rabbit when he opened the coffin where his father's body was supposed to be and was so furious by what he didn't see in there that he just smashed it with a piece of wreckage. He opens it and there's nothing there, and he doesn't quite look surprised. And I'm just, I appreciate y'all letting me talk a little bit about the Christian symbolism on this show. Again, this is not an explicitly Christian ending. They make a point of having a stained glass window over Jack's shoulder that has like a yin yang symbol and like symbols from like Hinduism, Buddhism, all that.
Taoism. I looked it up. Yeah. Christianity, Judaism, Taoism, Buddhism, Hinduism, and one more.
But
I can't remember.
This moment when he opens it, I think, just again, if y'all could indulge me for a second, speaking as someone who's a Christian, one of my favorite passages in the New Testament is a line from a letter to the Corinthians. O death, where is thy sting? O grave, where is thy victory? They have been swallowed up in life and victory, as just a summary of kind of the hope that, again, is partly a Christian thing, but I think this show also finds a way to express kind of universally. And that moment where there's nothing in the coffin is just already such a beautiful moment. And then we get the line of just that unmistakable voice of John Terry saying, "Hey, kiddo." And Jack turns and there's his dad.
Which is what broke me, like, for good. I'm going to attempt to lighten things up for the three of us here real quick.
Oh, good.
You guys remember the episode Across the Sea? And how we spent a lot of time making fun of Across the Sea for the sheer amount of times that they dropped the title Across the Sea. Well, in a nice little callback to Across the Sea, on the island, Jack wakes up or comes to, whichever you want to call it, after recorking the source on the island in the same spot that the Man in Black's body got thrown out at in Across the Sea when Jacob finds him after he's been smokified, just kind of like up against a rock. And that sets up, Jack survives recorking the island, but only long enough to give us one of the saddest endings of any TV show ever. Damn, I circled right back around to being sad.
Yeah, so he has a conversation with his dad where he asks, "How are you here?" And his dad goes, "How are you here, Jack?" And slowly the realization just comes, and Jack says, as he starts to cry a little bit, "I died." Realizing that, yeah, that's how they all got there. And we can talk a little bit how misinterpreted this scene is, but just in the moment of it, his dad explains that, yep, he died just like everybody who will die at some point. And everybody who was on the island, when they died, they came to this place. And that's what the Flash Sideways has been. It's the place where they could all find each other and make their last peace and then move on together. And I just realized we completely skipped the scene with Ben and Locke outside, where Locke rolls up and Ben is outside the church, and Ben very sincerely apologizes to Locke for everything he did. Locke forgives him and then stands up and walks into the church.
We skipped over.
Yeah, we weren't taking a lot of notes as we were watching it.
No, because on island, Hurley, now the Protector, is lamenting not knowing what the fuck to do and what they're going to do with Desmond and how to get him back. And Ben tells him, Jacob had his ways of doing things. You can do whatever you want. So Hurley asks Ben to be his number 2, which was pretty much what Ben has wanted this entire time, just to be the man behind the man to the man.
A man who literally came into the world and his mother died and his father always hated him for it. Like literally every second of Ben's life on Earth has been spent with people hating him and not wanting him around. And so the look on his face when Hurley just makes it clear, like, I want you to help me and stay here with me, is just really beautiful. Just Michael Emerson, again, completing this journey from, again, a character who wasn't supposed to be anything significant on the show to just one of the most memorable characters. And that carries over to the Flash Sideways, where Hurley comes out of the church to invite Ben to come in and join them, but Ben says that he's not quite ready to go yet. So Hurley just says, "You were a great number 2." And after what's implied to have been a very, very long and productive friendship, Ben says, "You were a great number 1." And they just say their goodbyes, and Ben waits outside while Jack makes his way in, and everybody just starts saying hello again. And it's this really beautiful moment of reunion and reconciliation. The last line we hear spoken in the series is Locke greeting Jack with, "We've been waiting for you." And they all say their hellos and their hugs. Aaron's there, Jen and Son. And I didn't notice this at the time, but they all sit down, and as someone pointed out, the arrangement of the pews and they're sitting on there is very similar to the arrangement of the seats on the plane. It's not like, I don't think it's exactly because like Jack is next to Kate and all that, but just that they're all lining up in the same way they did when all of this started.
Listeners, this is what you enjoy out of a podcast, right? Hearing 3 middle-aged people getting emotional and crying over a TV show. That's what you come to your podcast app
Hell yeah.
for. The show ends with Christian touching Jack's shoulder and then opening the double doors to the church and letting in the light. And before it turns pure white, maybe this was unintentional, but I don't think it was. The light that initially comes in through the double doors looks to me like it was the same hue as the light that was at the center of the island. Kind of like the island's last gift to them is now closed.
Yeah. And so that's what the Flash Sideways has been, just the waiting room for all of them as they found each other again and moved on together. And again, Christian emphasizes everything that happened on the island was real, all of their lives and their choices mattered, but this is just the last little piece of it. And while we're seeing that, it's crosscut with Jack on the island, stumbling away from the place where he ended up, and finding his way back to that grove of bamboo trees where he first woke up all the way back in the pilot. We even see that there was a shoe that was just randomly hanging there, and it's still there, and it's almost deteriorated, but Jack sees it, and he's ready to finally just lay down.
Well, we joked about it, but if Jin and Son's revelation didn't make you cry, or if Charlie and Claire's reunion didn't make you cry, or if Locke's memories didn't make you cry, or if Jack seeing his father again didn't make you cry, Jack finally collapses, and who should come up but Vincent, who lays down next to him and is there with him. Fucking hell, you guys.
Talking about the last gifts of the island.
God damn. Yep, Jack, the man who coined the phrase "live together, die alone," doesn't have to die alone because Vincent is there with him.
And in his last moment, he gets to look up, and we, again, kind of skipped over the whole thing of Frank and Miles repairing a plane with a bunch of duct tape. And, Kate convinces Claire to get on it as well. So the final survivors of this whole thing are Lapidus, Miles, Richard, Kate, Claire, and Sawyer.
Yeah.
And Sawyer, I think, of all of them, is the only one who's been on the island the entire time since the crash. And Jack gets to look up and see the plane flying overhead in his last moments. And we, of course, I still remember watching this and realizing how it was all going to end. And that, like, a few seconds before, because we see from Jack's perspective looking up and the plane passing over, and then we get a close-up of Jack's eye. And after the show opened so many episodes and flashbacks with an eye snapping open, finally Jack's eye closes. And I'm assuming this was an actual close-up of Matthew Fox's face, but it's a tremendous piece of acting because it's not just like a blink. You see him close his eye and his face just goes still. And lost.
Yeah. So what follows in our notes is a bunch of random thoughts that I had like later that evening, because we gave ourselves like a full 48 hours. Actually, it's closer to 72 hours. Yeah, 72 hours since we watched this. I mentioned it when we recorded last time, but we watched it on the 23rd, Saturday, May 23rd, 16 years to the date since it aired initially. But here's a bunch of notes that I took. When it was all said and done and we all had sort of composed ourselves, Gina, Robert's wife, who was crying as hard as the rest of us, asked, why didn't people like that? Because people have maligned this episode, the finale, the show as a whole for so long now because of that one critical misconception that they were dead the whole time, that none of it mattered, blah, blah, blah. To the point that I was talking to you guys afterwards, so many people thought that this episode would just tie up all the mystery and answer all the questions neatly with a bow that they skipped the entire season and showed up for the finale. Our friend Stan, former co-host of Long Walk Talks, he knew that I had been watching it, and he was like, yeah, I tried to watch the show. I didn't get into it. I'm going to watch the finale to see how it ends and see what the answers are.
Oh, God.
And so when I talked to him about it the next day, he's like, yeah, it didn't make any sense. I didn't like it. I was like, and I've postulated on here before, my theory for the last 16 years has been, if you watched every episode of this show and you watched it communally, because such a big part of the show itself is about community, is about friendships. And if you did that, if you've seen every episode, if you generally nerded out about it, those are the people that tend to love the series and the finale. The people who tuned in every once in a while, who missed episodes here or there, watched them out of order, weren't really paying attention. You know, today we'd call them like second screen viewers looking at their phones. Those are the people who tend not to like this show. But
I didn't have the community, but God damn, I loved it. I loved it then, and I know I told you guys I didn't think I could have loved that episode more, but I did. Driving home was like, I mean, aside from the fact that, well, I sound like I do now, and my eyes were swollen shut. I felt so positive, like even through all the tears, like I almost smiled the whole way home.
yeah, I think Katie summed it up well. My wife, Katie, she is the only one in the room who was not just sobbing by the end of it. But in referring to the ending of the episode, she did say, I hope that's how it is.
Yeah.
A couple of more random observations. We know that Richard has left the island before. He was working for Middleos Bioscience, so presumably he had aliases set up off island. What's going to happen to Sawyer and Claire, who were both confirmed dead when the Oceanic 6 came back? That's going to be a tough time for them explaining where they've been for the last 3 years.
I have to assume, being the criminal that he was, Sawyer probably has contacts, and he could probably get them new fake identities.
Yeah, I don't imagine it's the first time he's had to put on a different name for something.
I also like to imagine that Richard probably has a guy in Los Angeles that's like, oh yeah, you need a fake identity? Okay. Get you a social security number. Here's a dead guy's. I don't know.
And it's also, we will establish this sort of the next thing we watch, but, it's not like they're cut off from the resources of Hurley and Ben forever. So,
you know who wasn't in the church at the end? Vincent. Because Vincent is the goodest boy and never dies. He is still alive on that island.
Vincent got the Richard Alpert treatment and will simply be bounding around, just joyfully loving the island forever.
That's how I choose to believe it.
Yeah, same. And just poor Jack's mom. The first time she lost him for 108 days in a plane crash. Then, this was shortly after her ex-husband died in a completely different part of the world. She got her son back for 3 years, during which time she watched him devolve into an alcoholic mess, and then lost him again in a second plane crash. That's some shitty luck, Mom. Sorry. And the last thing I put for these general notes, the Dead All Along watch is finally over. No, guys, if there's any confusion still lingering out there, as Robert was talking about during Christian and Jack's reunion, Christian says to him, everything that happened to you was real. And then says, everyone dies, kiddo. Some before you, some long after you. No. One last time. They weren't fucking dead the entire time.
As somebody put it, yes, they were dead the entire time, which is why the finale consists of the emotional reunions of some people who were on a plane together for a few hours. Like, hey, you were sitting behind me 3 rows. Hey, hug and tears. I will say the episode's actual ending, because after Jack's eye closes and we see the title card, over the credits, there's some music and there's some shots of the plane debris on the beach, which apparently the studio wanted to put in as sort of a reminder of where the first episode came. But some viewers who saw it were like, oh, so that's a reveal. The plane really did just crash and they all died. And it's like, no, that wasn't it was just sentimental, guys. That was a really expensive set at the time.
People will ruin anything.
Well, one of those people who thought the end credits meant that was my mom. I remember I told this story in our introductory episode for this podcast. But for those who didn't hear that or don't remember it, the night the finale aired, because I got my mom into the show after I started watching it, and she watched the finale live. It ended. I'm sitting in a room full of people, half of whom are crying, half of whom, again, just tuned in for the finale, and it meant nothing to them. But my phone rings, and it's my mom, and I was like, oh, man, that was really great, wasn't it? And she was also crying, and she was like, oh, I can't believe it. They were dead the entire time. And I was like, wait, what are you talking about? No. Yeah, they showed the plane crash. Yeah, they were dead the whole time. Mom, no. I had to convince her, and apparently ABC had to issue a statement the next day, that's not what those shots meant.
Oh my God.
All right, well, let's pivot to the saddest thing of all time. To the show's epilogue, The New Man in Charge.
Because we watched to give ourselves a recovery time, we watched, I think, the season 6 bloopers first.
That's right.
Because I had this on the DVD set, and then we switched over to this one, which was, I think it's available online now, but it was initially a DVD extra. So
I watched it on YouTube a while back. I did it again. Sorry. So The New Man in Charge, the epilogue to the show. It turns out we are going to Guam. The episode starts in a Dharma warehouse in Guam. If listeners and viewers don't remember, that was where the second Ajira flight was supposed to be going, if they didn't, fly into a teleportation tunnel or whatever. But we got the great line from Frank Lapidus, who saw Jack and slowly realized that something was horribly wrong on his plane and said, we're not going to Guam, are we? This exists pretty much to tie up loose ends and give a last few explanations, or as I put it, shut up, whiners moments.
It is interesting to watch this and be like, okay, so these are what the creators considered kind of the fair unanswered questions.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to be like, oh, well, actually, here's the chemical composition of the stuff at the core of the island. Or, oh, here's where Allison Janney woman came from. Or it's like, no, you don't get to know that. That's not the point.
Yeah, but Ben is off island representing Hurley, going to this warehouse in Guam to shut it down. But naturally, the two guys working there have questions.
We've been doing this for so long. Don't we get any answers?
It's very, very meta. They knew what they were doing with this one. Ben pulls out a little sleeve of DVDs because in an effort to preserve the Dharma brand's history, he's been digitizing all those film reels and Betamax tapes and VHS tapes onto DVD. I would love to see him figuring out this technology. So he shows them a DVD of one of the orientation videos, and we're not going to go over all of them, but among the things that it explains, Pierre Chang's aliases and why he has them, polar bears, the Hurley bird, what's up with pregnant women, why are they called the hostiles, the re-education room, Walt? I don't remember what. I put a question mark instead of.
Well, that's like the second half of the whole thing. I do think it does. Like, one fair question is, like, in season 2 they were getting supply drops for the Dharma Initiative, but season 5 establishes that, like, or I guess season 3 technically, like, the Dharma Initiative got wiped out in like the mid 80s. So it's like, who was still dropping that stuff in? And it turns out there were some guys in a warehouse whose whole job was to do this. And they just were getting automatically generated notices, so they never stopped doing it.
There are a lot of implications in this one that you can suss out. Like, Ben says that the Looking Glass station in Los Angeles was always coming up with coordinates for it. So presumably you can move the island a long distance by moving the donkey wheel like Ben and Locke did. But it seems like it is always constantly moving, which would make it even harder for somebody to track down, somebody like Widmore. So this warehouse is always getting new coordinates about where to send the supplies. But yeah, and then Ben goes to see Walt at the same sanitarium that Hurley was in and convinces him to come back to the island.
Also issues one of what is probably a very long list of apologies. In this case, I'm so sorry I kidnapped you.
Yeah, well, Ben had a lot of those to give out. What did this epilogue fail to cover? What big mysteries or questions are now left unanswered? Because, like I said, 1 or 2 episodes, maybe 3 ago, that season 6 was really good about doling out answers a little bit at a time instead of dumping them all on you right there in the last episode like a lot of people thought they would. But we've gotten answers to various questions. Is there anything that fails? Like, I love the inclusion of the polar bears because famously, like, that's one of the main reasons that Katie said she didn't want to watch the shows. She thought the whole polar bear on a desert island thing was stupid. Well, we get an explanation for it here. So can you guys think anything? Put it in your back pocket. We're going to do a wrap-up episode. So if between now and then you're like, hey, I thought about this. Yeah, let's see what they failed. But it seems like they got pretty much all of it, to me, all the big ones.
I think they got the questions that could be answered in a satisfying way answered. I think the stuff they left unanswered for the most part would have just made the show seem smaller if they tried to explain it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. The last thing that I put here was Jacob could presumably teleport to mainland U.S. and also South Korea, as we see in one of the flashbacks with him and Jin and Sun. So therefore, Hurley can probably do it too. But Ben actually being in L.A. to go see Walt and, he flies, or he gets to Guam somehow, means that they found a way off the island, whether it be by plane or submarine or whatever. So that means that presumably at some point they did get Desmond home to Penny and little Charlie.
Yeah, we do see Penny briefly in the church. She's there with all of them. So even though she never appeared in the Flash Sideways at the proper timeline, it is emphasized that they're together at the end as well.
And something else that I want you guys to think about between now and the next episode, we're going to go back to the one. There's one human and the rest of the cast is Muppets for season 6. We did it for 1 through 5. I have my answer, but I want you guys to fill in yours between now and next time. We had a lot of great lines over the course of the show, and I want to, when we do our wrap up, I want us to each reenact all of these line deliveries. But the last addition that I made to the saddest lines entry in here is when Jack finally figures out what's happening in the Flash Sideways, and he tells Christian, because I died too.
I've got one other thing that makes me sad, but I'm going to save it for kind of the button at our recording. It's the script for the final episode was released at some point, and the actual final lines written in there describing the final moments of the show are just something I'm going to say when we're done with our usual, farewells and follow us elsewheres.
Mm-hmm. Well, that brings us to the end of the show, but not to the end of our podcast. So next week, hopefully, if we can make it work, because I know, Cara, you said you're going on vacation. Hopefully we can get our wrap-up episode out next week, if not the week after, where we'll talk about not just season 6 wrap-up like we've done with 1 through 5, but the series as a whole. And then we'll do our last Lost Adjacent movie, which we've all agreed is going to be Bone Tomahawk, starring, or at least featuring, Matthew Fox. I made this joke once before, and I'm going to do it again. It's a real side splitter of a movie. So we got 2 more episodes to look forward to. Now that we have all gotten in a good cry one more time, and let's be honest, fuck guys, we're probably going to do this again next week. Something's going to trigger one of us and make us fucking cry again.
Yeah.
But between now and then, we all still hate social media, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Robert, instead of plugging your social media, what's a thing that is sparking joy for you these days?
So I've tried not to, listen to other podcasts talking about Lost or read too many other thoughts, because I'd like it to just be our conversations and our thoughts for the most part. But I have been reading a book called Back to the Island by Noel Murray and Emily St. James, who were 2 writers for the TV Club. And just neither of them covered Lost for the site, but they were both fans at the time. So they did kind of an episode by episode of just break down thoughts, themes, and a few kind of additional pieces about the show. Really fun read, and I highly recommend it if you're a fan of the show and if you've enjoyed listening to us talk about it.
Excellent. Cara, what about you?
I'm just making my way through Revival, which I still don't know where the hell we're going, but I'm here for it. And yeah, that's about it.
Very nice. I'm in the middle of a whole bunch of things. I started rewatching Firefly. I started rewatching season 2 of Daredevil because the Punisher special that just came out a bit ago made me want to go back to the John Bernthal Punisher origins. Yeah, so
You hear they're doing an animated follow-up to Firefly?
I did know that. I'm very much looking forward to it. So that's what I've been going on, kind of revisiting some old enjoyments. But I am still on social media. You can follow me on Instagram at DB Hensley, if you feel so inclined. I should have had this pulled up, but you know what? My emotions have been all over the place in this episode. If you want to keep up with Long Walk Productions, you can visit us online at longwalk.us to see more of our original work or hear past episodes that are no longer streaming. You can follow the YouTube links in the show notes. Thank you very much for listening, and if you enjoy this show, please make sure to leave us a rating and a review on whatever platform you're listening on.
The plane clears frame, finally free of the island. Jack Shepherd has done what he came to this place to do. He has found his purpose. He has found love and been loved. He has finally found a way to love himself. The bamboo sways across the blue sky, and Jack Shepherd's eye closes one final time. He is gone. The end.